boys and girls, it's Mrs. Cutler. I am with you tonight to do Read Aloud, and I don't know if you noticed, but I actually got my hair cut today. I was super excited to get that done, and now I can actually see, and I don't have to use bobby pins, so really amazing and awesome. Great day, and I hope you enjoyed the beautiful weather too. Super sunny and warm. Tonight, I'm going to be reading Among the Impostors. We're getting pretty close to the end of the book, so I'll probably read a couple chapters. These are pretty suspenseful. We're starting with chapter 33, so here we go. Luke stared at the phone. He tried so hard. It wasn't fair that he didn't even know if he'd succeeded or not. No, he knew. He'd failed. He'd heard the careless tone in Mr. Talbot's voice. Luke couldn't fool himself into thinking it was all an act, like each word carrying double meaning. It was 3 a.m. He'd awakened Mr. Talbot out of a dead sleep. How could he possibly have understood what Luke needed? Luke dropped the phone and put his face down on Miss Hawkins' desk. The file he'd been holding on his lap spilled onto the floor, dumping out papers filled with lies. He didn't care. He didn't care that anyone walking by could catch him where he wasn't supposed to be. He was past caring about anything. Had Jen ever reached this point, planning the rally? Luke remembered the last time that he'd seen her, the night she'd left for the capital. She'd seemed almost unearthly, as if she'd already passed out of the realm she shared with Luke. And she had. He was still in hiding, and she was about to risk her life to be free. It was simpler for you, Luke accused silently. You weren't confused. It was hard having a dead hero for a best friend. I just can't live up to you, Jen, he thought. I'm not you. He wasn't Lee Grant either. Slowly, just to get rid of them, he began picking up the faked papers and stuffing them back into the file. Moving like someone in a dream, he put the phone back on the desk and the file back in the filing cabinet and shut the drawer. He walked out of the office and pulled the door closed behind him, making no effort whatsoever to hide the broken glass. He'd had to run away. That's all there was to it. He could take the other 4 with him. They'd just have to take their chances. They could head to the city. Luke had lost all track of time now. Before he woke the others and terrified them out of their wits, he decided he'd peek outside and see how much time they had left before daylight. He went to the door that they always used, the one that led to the woods, and had once led to his garden. He tried to turn the knob, but his hand must have been weak with exhaustion. His fingers slipped right off. He gripped the knob again and tried harder. The door was locked from the outside. Panicked, Luke ran to the front door, the one that he'd come through with Mr. Talbot that first day. It was locked too. What kind of school kept its students locked in at night? No school, just prisons. Luke rushed around trying every door he could find, but it was hopeless. They were all locked, and none of them had glass panels for him to break. Finally, he sank to the floor outside his history classroom. We're trapped, he thought, trapped like rats in a hole. Luke was not the least bit surprised when he heard footsteps coming down the hall. He hardly dared look up, but it wasn't Jason or someone from the population police standing over him. It was his history teacher, Mr. Dirk. Back to bed, young man, Mr. Dirk said. I appreciate your dedication to history, but studying through the night is strictly prohibited. I'm afraid I'll have to give you... I know, Luke said. 2 demerits. Under Mr. Dirk's stern gaze, Luke trudged back upstairs. Chapter 34. Luke was overcome by guilt when he woke up the next morning. He could have slept away. How could he have slept away so many hours? He's had to come back to his room before Mr. Dirk was watching, but he could have snuck out later. Why hadn't he at least warned the others? Some rational side of his mind argued, what good would a warning do when they couldn't even escape? Around him, his other roommates were complaining about the exam that they faced that day. 1 or 2 of them had books open on their beds, and they were studying as they got dressed. It seemed unreal that anyone could care about exams at a time like this. Fearfully, Luke looked over at Jason's bed. It was empty. The sheets were... Oopsies! My camera just fell off the tripod. Let's try that again. All right, let's see if that'll work. Okay, where were we? His roommates were studying while they were getting dressed. One or two of them had books open. Fearfully, Luke looked over at Jason's bed. It was empty. The sheets were rumpled the same way they'd been last night. The pillow still held its indentation, but Jason was nowhere in sight. "Where's Scott?" Luke asked. His voice trembled despite his best efforts to sound casual. His question was met with blank stares. "Don't know," one boy finally mumbled and went back to studying. At breakfast, Luke sat with Jason's gang, but Jason was still missing. Luke peered around the table at the four boys Jason had betrayed. Antonio/Samuel, who had flashing dark eyes and a quick laugh. Denton/Travis, who knew hundreds of riddles. Sherman/Ryan, who talked with an accent Luke had never heard before. And Patrick/Tyrone, who had once claimed he got his fake ID by the look of the Irish. Luke couldn't have said he really knew any of them well, but it was agony to sit there watching them eat their cream of wheat, making jokes, totally unaware that they were doomed. Luke tried to lean over and whisper in Patrick's ear, "You're in danger. I need to tell you." But Patrick just brushed him away with the words, "Quit it, Lecker! You're bugging me." And then all the others stared at Luke. How many of them were on Jason's side, working for the population police? But Luke didn't dare give his warning out loud. Breakfast time slipped away, and Luke's panic was only growing. His thoughts ran in circles. He should go hide by himself if he couldn't save the others. But he couldn't just abandon the others. He had to save them. But how? "If you're not going to eat your breakfast, I will," Patrick said when Luke's was the only bowl that wasn't empty. Silently, Luke passed over his food. "Hey, thanks," Patrick said, a huge grin. "Ha, you're the greatest." If only you knew, Luke thought miserably. Just then, the dining hall doors banged open. "Population police!" a booming voice called out. Luke froze. He'd known this was coming, but it still didn't seem possible. He tried to yell, "Run!" to Patrick on the others, but he opened his mouth and nothing came out. His legs were frozen too. He could only sit and watch and listen in horror. A huge man stepped into the room. Medals covered his olive green uniform. He clutched a sheaf of papers in his fist. "I have a warrant here for the arrest of illegals who have compounded their crime by the use of falsified documents," he announced. Luke closed his eyes in agony. It was all over. He'd failed at everything. He hadn't saved the others, and he hadn't saved himself. He'd never done anything for the cause. He was going to die before he had a chance to accomplish a single thing. The police officer peered at the papers in his hand. He cleared his throat. "The sentence for those in violation of Population Law 3903 is death. The sentence for falsification of documents by an illegal citizen is death by torture. Government's choice." One of the autistic boys was crying. Luke could hear him across the room. Everyone else sat in deathly silence. Luke hoped that he'd at least have the chance to apologize to the other four. The police officer continued. "The first illegal I have to arrest goes by the name of—" "Relax, Stan, I found him," someone interrupted from behind. Luke recognized the voice. A second later, Mr. Talbot walked into the room, and behind him, with his wrists in handcuffs and his ankles in leg irons, was Jason. Dun, dun, dun. Chapter 35. Woo! This book is getting so good, and we only have about 3 or 4 chapters left, so I can't wait to hear what happens. I will read with you tomorrow night, Among the Imposters and Chapter 35. Have a great evening, guys. Bye.